What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of We Only Laughs with Tyson Paul, the podcast where we talk about nothing but laughs with some of your favorite comedians, young and old, prime, past their prime. We just do it all. So, tonight, man, you're in for a real treat. This lady from the Bay Area is probably one of the funniest ladies that you'll ever see around America, actually. She's been doing comedy for a number of years. And I've seen her personally numerous times, and she's basically like getting good results at an STD clinic. Let's give it up right now for the one and only Aivy Cordova. What's going on, Ivy?
Yay!
Yay!
That is
Yay!
STD! Woo! Chlamydia, bitch.
So Ivy,
No,
how you been? How you been so far? How you been this week?
I've been good. So far, so good. I mean, the two biggest things were, my son got his braces on, so that was, that was one thing. And then hearing that the whole state may close again, that's a whole other thing. Other than those two events, pretty solid.
Yeah, we all heard that. That's it's kind of terrible news, but then also good news. But we'll get to that in a little bit. But first, let's start off how we normally do. Just get to know you a little bit. So tell me some of your first memories of comedy in general. Not basically when you got your first start, but just you falling in love with comedy in general. Like, give me some of your first memories.
Like, honestly, my first memory has nothing to do with, like, me actually doing it. It's just more like, for me, comedy was a way to connect with my dad. Because my dad, growing up, he traveled a lot for business, as we are now as an adult. And whenever he would come back, I would always catch him in the living room watching comedy, like some sort of comedy, like Eddie Murphy, Richard Pryor, like the classics. And regardless of how inappropriate the subject matter was, I would stay there and watch it with him because it was like sort of my way of keeping him close.
The way you got into comedy basically is through like spending quality time with your dad.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I just didn't know, until years later, I didn't know that was a thing that somebody like me could do.
Yeah. No, actually, that's funny because like that's kind of one of my first memories of comedy is my dad took us to a drive-in out here in Central California called the Crest Drive-In, and the very first movie we saw at that drive-in was Eddie Murphy's Raw. And,
yes.
Yeah, so and it's crazy because the only thing I ever remember about that drive-in is seeing Eddie Murphy in a purple suit and stuff. And that's the only time really kind of my dad was in our lives. So like it's kind of a touchy it's a touchy memory, but a memorable one.
Understandably.
So you're raised in the Bay Area, but you're actually born in the Philippines, correct?
Yeah. I was born just outside of Manila, and we weren't even there for that long. Like my second birthday was at a Burger King in Charlotte, North Carolina. So my time in the Philippines was fairly short. So even though I have all the paperwork of any other immigrant, I feel like I'm an American through and through, which is because I'm super rude.
You're a dual citizen.
Dual citizen, yeah.
That's what's up. Like,
yeah.
Like, I mean, with the way America's going right now, you can easily just go back to the Philippines and you'll be
right. I could be there, and my parents are here because they were just like, I hate the idea of having to quarantine in some place for 2 weeks. I was just like, a fucking hotel, bitch. Give it to me. Like, let's go. Like, I'm ready. I've got my bag packed. Like, I mean, I've always had a bag packed because everybody keeps a whole bag if they're responsible in their car. But I'm always ready to go. Just got a passport. Let's fucking go.
And you spent your second birthday in Charlotte, North Carolina. Like, how'd you guys go from there to Charlotte though? Like, because I thought you guys just originally went from Manila to the Bay.
No, first it was we actually went from Manila to Chicago. My sister was born in Chicago. Then we moved to Charlotte, North Carolina. Basically, we were staying where my dad had family. So we had a brother in Chicago, had a brother in North Carolina. Like, they're all still there. And so we basically just stayed with them when, until my dad got a permanent job out in California. And so we moved to first, I think, Union City and then Hayward. Yeah. It was cold.
In the Bay Area? In California, it's cold?
It was cold.
It's cold to you in California?
yeah. Just it was cold. It was cold, and I mean warmer than Chicago, but it was still sort of like you couldn't exactly wear shorts outside all the time. You always had to be prepared with like a jacket in the trunk of your car, which is what everybody says now about SF. It's like even if it's in the summer, you never know. Bring a jacket, right? So the other thing I remember about growing up in the Bay Area was it was just always super diverse, especially where I was. Like I did not predominantly hang out with other Filipino kids until I got to college. Like my growing up in Hayward was mostly you have like whites, Latinos, Black people, like everybody, pretty much. Maybe like a handful of Asian people, but it was just always super diverse.
So you think being around like so many like multicultures, like do you think that is what helped you like get your start in the stand up?
I don't know if it's so much my start in stand up, so much as I have always really just appreciated like diversity everywhere. Like I get nervous. I get nervous when I see a lineup and I'm like not only am I the only woman, I'm the only person of color. And I'm like, am I here because I'm fucking funny or am I here because you guys have to fulfill some sort of racial fucking diversity quota? So,
it's definitely because you're funny. No.
Yeah, but to be fair, it's not even me just getting nervous because I see white people. I get nervous when there's also a lot of Filipino people. Like I get suspicious when I see a lot of Filipino people. I'm like, what is this? Yeah. What's going on? So like I'm just so used to having such a diverse, like a lot of my personal friendships too. Like I don't really have like a Filipino crew that I hang out with, like aside from my family. You know, all my friendships like have been diverse, like across the board. Mm-hmm. But I think now that I think about it, you're probably right. It has helped me in comedy because, you know, I wouldn't be considered particularly out of place like anywhere really if you know how to work everywhere.
Yeah, no, because I mean I feel the same way because while I was growing up, I didn't really like I was in a year-round program, but basically like we call it a magnet program where basically they take all kinds of different kids and just put them in a room and let them learn for like basically most of the year. But I didn't notice until like years later that like me being around people like of different races and stuff like that helped me with my stand-up. And it didn't help me like, and I kind of was like you, but the opposite, like, because when I first started, when I was doing like just completely Black room, I'd be so nervous because I'd be like, man, like they gonna think I'm like whitewashed or something like that because I'm telling these jokes. But then like I learned how to like maneuver. Like, okay, it's a Black room, so these are jokes I can use, and you know, this is a strictly, completely Latino room or Asian room or just completely white people. So, like, I mean, I think like being around so many people, and this is probably why now that I'm older, I like being around like different groups of people.
Yeah.
Is basically why like I like doing stand up or like if I'm like booking a lineup, I like to have like a variety of comedians. That way like nobody feels segregated or anything like that. And then also it just helps like comedians just like grow in their craft and stuff. So yeah, I can see how growing up in the Bay Area, especially in the Bay Area, because like y'all just like multicultural, but it's like you get the thick of the thick.
We all just hang out. Like I had Black friends before I ever had Asian friends. Like that's how diverse my upbringing was. Like it's like what I said earlier. Like when I see like a large group and they're predominantly Filipino, I get suspicious. I'm like, are you guys relatives? Like, is this my fucking intervention? Like, what are you all doing here? Like, I'm not used to that. It got easier when I went to college because there were actually more. I don't want to say there were more Filipinos, but it's just they were more compressed. Like they were more like accessible. You know, it wasn't like let's find every random Asian person on this campus and like congregate. But it was a larger population, and so that was like my real like first experience hanging out with predominantly Asian people.
All right. So tell me, how did you get so how did you start doing stand-up comedy?
So I was a theater kid, actually. After college, I was in this theater program, this Asian American theater called Filipino, actually called Bindlestiff, and they were out in San Francisco. And I started out doing like sketch comedy and trying to write, which was not very successful. And I was also really crappy at theater. And so one of the guys that was in that community, he was a stand-up. He's still doing it now. This guy, Kevin Kamiya, he put together a workshop it's still being run. I don't know if he's still running it or if other people are still running it, but he put together a workshop for aspiring stand-up comedians, like just how he got started, how to construct a joke and things like that. And this was back in 2006. So I took that class and it was cool, but like, I think also I just lacked the discipline to really be a working comic at that time. Like I was just really interested in partying, and I was one of those people that during open mics I would actually buy the 2-drink minimum. I would actually buy alcoholic drinks. I'd be fucked up on stage. Like it was just really embarrassing. And I also don't think I ever progressed past working with the people that I was already working in. Like I wasn't really going to open mics. I wasn't networking. I was there to get fucked up. That's why I should have surprised that nothing happened with my career at that time.
She was like, I wasn't there for the comedy. I was here for the drinks.
Right, exactly. Like I was one of those people that I look at now and I'm just like, you can't really be doing cocaine with your heart, with your existing like heart rate. It's different. I'm old and boring now, and fucking so
she's like, but back in the day when I first started comedy, like I was a rebel. Like and it's funny, you there for the drinks when you're okay with the 2-drink minimum, because no comic starting out is okay with any drink minimum. I gotta pay these drink minimums just to perform, like, but I'm performing, like, yeah, but you gotta, bars got a rule and stuff. You just happy go lucky.
I did not even get any club work at that time. Like I basically half-assed it for about maybe two more years, and then and then I had a kid, and then I ate shit at a show in that was showcasing a bunch of Asian American comics. To give you guys some context of how long ago this was, I had a newborn at home. Jake was about 6 months old, and Ali Wong was the headliner. Like that's how long ago this was. We were all still on the college circuit, and I still don't know. I think I took the gig from somebody that I knew from my theater days. That, to his credit, he had probably assumed that I was still up on my material, which I was not. And so when I completely ate shit, I was just like, yo, I need to get my life together. So I quit. Like I threw away my notebooks. I didn't think about comedy again for like the next 8 years. Like that was I burned out.
You quit because you bombed that night, or did you quit just like just things was going on in your life and you just wasn't really taking comedy seriously?
A little. Because it hurt. Like, what's crazy? Like when I bombed, that night my friends took me to this restaurant called BJ's, and they let me eat as many Pazookies and fucking root beer as I wanted, because I was still breastfeeding. Otherwise, that would have been like a blunt with PCP to the face. Like that's how painful that memory was. Like, it still hurts thinking about it. Like almost 11, 12 years, how many years later? Like it's nuts, right? And so, but like for me, bombing was one thing, but it also just sort of culminated. It was like a culmination of places in my life where I felt like, okay, you know what? In addition to not being a great comic, I probably just need to get my shit together. So yeah. So during that time, like I listened to podcasts. I was still doing sketch comedy. I did not think about stand-up again until maybe around 2014, 2015.
And this happened, and you bombed
2009.
2009. So 2009 to 2014 is when you took the break, or
2015ish, because I was still doing sketch comedy. I was also trying to figure out how to get out of my marriage. Just all these things, like all these situations that I was in that I was not necessarily happy. You know what I mean?
And that's kind of weird, because like all those situations that you were going through at the time is like, that's what comics use as the best material for an HBO special.
Oh, you bet.
And you was just like, you know what? I'm done. I put the pad away. Do you even remember it? Because everybody remembers like everything that was going on while they were bombing, like how they were bombing, like how the audience was taking their jokes. Like I know you remember everything, right? So you remember all the jokes you said, and like at what moment did you know like I'm dying? Like
I'm okay. So on stage, when I was actually on stage, there's not a lot I remember, because I feel like, I'll be honest with you, I think I mentally blocked it out. But the moments I remember are before and after I fucking fucked up. Because backstage, I was hanging out with some other people that I didn't know. And then there was this dude that was, I guess, like this, like he was an assistant to the stage manager, sort of a gopher, and he was like running around saying, "If you need anything at all, like water, drinks, anything." He was one of those people, right? And so I was like, "All right, cool, whatever," right? And then so I go on stage, I clearly fuck up, I have a minor panic attack halfway through my set. Nobody notices because I'm just like stiff, but like, you know, I somehow managed to get through the set. And then when I came off of stage, my mouth was dry because again, complete like panic attack. I was about to, you know, relapse and have another one like right there. And then I managed to flag down the dude, and I was just like, would you mind, you know, getting me that water? And he was just like, they sell them at the student union.
Damn.
And I looked at him like, are you fucking, oh my God. Like if I hadn't already felt so bad about myself, I would have strangled him. And so, yeah, I was just like, I texted my friends from backstage. I was like, I'm going to leave like fucking right now. So, and I remember like, I still remember that guy. I fucking looked him up on LinkedIn because I'm funny. And he's apparently selling insurance now. So Jimmy, nice to know you're doing big things.
No. You remember that, and then that's how you know you bombed. Like you remember everybody in the room because you gotta like make sure, you gotta write a list down. Like no, like because Tasha was in the room, man. I gotta see what her life is like in 20 years, so I can write to her. Remember when you didn't laugh, stupid bitch? Like I'm glad you only at the car wash. But Jimmy's successful, so that kind of sucks. That adds on to the bombing. Like not only did the guy not want to get you water anymore, he's successful in life. So like,
exactly. You know, hopefully you've got somebody at his little insurance agency that's willing to get him water, regardless of his job performance.
You know what you should do? You should like find out which insurance company he works at. Like go to his insurance company, do like a 5-minute set in front of him, and if he doesn't laugh, leave. Come back the next day, do another 5-minute set in front of him, and if he doesn't laugh again, just keep coming back. Like just keep coming back and be like, I'm gonna get you one day. I'm gonna get you one day, Jimmy. You're gonna realize I'm good at this.
I don't suck, Jimmy. I don't suck.
Yeah, I don't suck at all. And stuff, but so basically during that break from like 2009 to 2014, like okay, you were getting everything together and all that. Like what made you like even like start to even think like, okay, like I kind of actually want to redeem myself? Like were you thinking you wanted to redeem yourself, or were you just thinking like, oh, you just had the itch and you missed stand-up comedy?
Well, so I was doing sketch comedy for maybe 3 years, right? It was like an all-female troupe. They're still doing sketch. They're called Granny Cart Gangstas. They're really good. But I was just increasingly unhappy, not necessarily with them, but it's just more so, I think, unhappy in the sense that I knew I should be doing something different, but I didn't know what. And then one show that we had, they actually didn't really plan very well for quick changes. So rather than have people do super quick changes, they just started having me do stand-up in between each like skit, just to take up time. And, you know, I remember like people being really receptive to it. And I'm just like, you know what? I still don't suck at this. I'm going to wait at some point. Like I decided I'm going to wait because I knew at that point, if I was going to pursue anything related to like comedy, anything creative, I would need to get out of my marriage first, because he was also an artist and, you know, he's a musician. And this is not like a criticism of him. He was always like really encouraging of my stand-up comedy career. For me personally, I just chose, and I made the decision, I didn't want to have a stand-up career and be married to him at the same time.
It was either the marriage or stand-up, so you picked stand-up.
I was just like, I only have so much emotional reserve, and I've got a son, you know what I mean? I'm just like, do I really want to think about somebody that's constantly like, you know, butting heads, whatever, you know, because he was into like other things like drugs. And so like, you know, I knew that if I went back to comedy, that was going to have to be my focus. Like I could not focus on, I really don't think I would have had the bandwidth to focus on working on being a working comic and all the emotional stuff that comes with dealing with an unhappy union. So
So what do you think?
it,
So what do you think is harder, being married to a musician, or being married to a comedian?
oh fuck, I hope I've been married to a musician once. Maybe if I married like a Christian rocker that had no prospect of doing drugs, but I also just don't know how fun that would be on a personal level. So
Yeah.
at the same time, I feel like being married to another comedian, like I don't know, like I don't know how that would be, because I feel like
I mean, it's easy though, because you can just think about him being married to you.
I don't know, like here's the thing, I've dated a comedian, but I've never, like, you know what I mean? I never lived with him. Like, he was far away. I mean, you remember this. He was far away. So it's not like I had like a day-to-day comedian in my house. And I think that's one of the things I appreciate about, the family that I have and my family structure. Like, nobody in my family, I mean, I have cousins that have come to watch my show. And my mom, I know she's a huge fan of like some of the stuff that I've done. But for the most part, like, I can be completely off when I'm home. Like, just the people in my family, they don't really care. I mean, I'm not saying that they don't care as in they don't support me. Like some Asian families are, oh, they don't support me. Like, shut up. No, that's not how it is. It's just more like they treat me like a regular person. So I don't have to have the complex of feeling like I'm going to be on when I get home, or somebody expects me to be on. And, there are some comics that I'm just like, if I were to live with them on a day-to-day basis, I don't know what that would be like, because they would have to just be a regular human being and not feel like they have to live up to their comedy persona all the time. I feel like that would be fucking exhausting.
Yeah, no, I think I always wondered if people, because like I'm one of those comics that like, I'm so in love with comedy that I can't ever really turn it off. Like I'll always just be thinking about it. But I always wonder if there is like a on and off switch for some comedians, because it seems like all the successful ones, there's no off switch. Like they're just that like all the time and stuff.
Really?
But then there's others, like it seems like, okay, like they turn it off and stuff. So like, and then with you like being able to, I mean, because you took a break from comedy and stuff, so I think it's kind of easier for you to like kind of have an on and off switch when it comes to basically stand up and stuff. So yeah, like like how do you adjust it?
I think, compartmentalization, I feel like, is a standard feature on most like children of first generation immigrants. So I compartmentalize everything a lot. Like there's a part of my brain that's completely on when I'm at the office, and then there's a completely different person that comes out as a comedian. And then there's also another person that shuts both those things when I'm home. Like I feel like there's just a time and a place for everything. I mean, and don't get me wrong, I feel like the person that comes out on stage is a pretty accurate representation of, how nuts I can be occasionally. But I feel like when people talk to me, outside of comedy, or when they talk to me like almost immediately following the show, I feel like they get disappointed that I'm not some like fucking sex freak that keeps like whips and chains in the back, in my trunk or anything like that. Like, first of all, I have a cabinet for that. Second of all, like, I'm a regular human being.
And this is it, and you feel like people just think like this way about you because of your material, like
yeah. So a lot of why I wanted to keep my comedy career under wraps. Like when I first started my now current job, because I was coming from a few years of tech jobs. This is another tech job, and I was thinking, maybe people will take me more seriously if I don't actually, professionally, if I don't tell them the other thing that I do. And then about 3 months into my new job, there was like a sales guy that walks through the door, and he was just like, "Didn't I just see you at Cobb's?" I'm like, shh. And then that pretty much outed me. And like for the longest time, like for maybe like my first 6 months to a year, people would be like begging me to tell them when shows were, and I just refused, because I was like, I want to get my reputation here professionally before you guys hear what the fuck I talk about on stage. So it was maybe like 2 years before my coworkers actually came to see some of my shows. And now that they've seen it, you know, they come to before COVID, they were coming to my shows fairly regularly, which is nice. I had a couple of them come to my show last, I think the show that I did like on Sunday. Yeah, I had 2 coworkers come to that shit.
No, yeah. So you had to wait. It's funny. You had to wait till the probationary period was over for them to come to your
Right,
show, so you
right.
wouldn't get
Exactly.
fired.
I was just like, I am not going to talk about. I was like, I'm not going to get caught talking about dicks in front of the leadership team until my insurance kicks in, and then at that point, it's too fucking late. Like y'all already invested in me, and I'm invested in you. Like, let's forget about the other stuff I talk about when I'm not within a 10 feet radius of this building, and let's do this.
Yeah, no, but I think of thinking about your whole process and stuff, and your material, because you took a break, because of a night that you like bombed, but then you came back and like basically your material is just like a sex worker, like that's watching porn at the same time. Like, how did you realize, okay, this is your niche and this is like what you love to talk about, and it's working for you? Like,
Yeah.
how did you just like, because basically like in a way you're kind of becoming, you're a double agent, and like one minute you're corporate and then the next minute like you probably should get fired.
Right. No, pretty much. So when I first came back to comedy, my material was pretty, for lack of a better word, I think it was predictable. You know, I talked about like what was going on in my sex life. Well, not sex life, because I had just gotten married. Like I had gotten married the year before, so I never really talked about my marriage. There was a point where my material was more about my kid, and then when my marriage ended, and I started what I now like to refer to as the great Tinder phase of 2017. Um, when that started, that gave me a lot of material. Like, and because for me personally, I'm never somebody that wants to talk about my current relationship while I'm actually in the relationship. So
Mm,
I've never talked about my marriage. You're not going to hear me talk about my last relationship, like none of that shit. But
mm,
finding myself in the position of being a single mom, like right after I came back to comedy, just gave me
mm,
so much more to write about. But I felt like, because it was also at the time where dating apps were prevalent and every last comedian had a story about being on Tinder.
mm,
I'm just like, well, how can I make this different? Because you're hearing about this from a mom's point of view. Like, some of you guys talk about like, oh, this guy doesn't have a bed frame. I'm just like, well, dude, that's over needs to bounce in 45 minutes because my son's getting back from jujitsu practice. So, I have to, I made it my own. I made it my own, and I think that's what people enjoy. It's just, I don't think people expect to hear the shit that comes out of my mouth.
mm,
Seeing as, I'm a mom, I work, I have a kid, like I have a lot of other things in my life to balance other than,
mm,
just being a, 24-year-old comic without health
mm,
insurance and responsibilities. Maybe
mm,
they like hearing it from somebody that, she kind of got her shit together, but
mm,
there's also some laughable things in there, and that's relatable.
mm. Okay,
That's what I think.
and yeah, I can tell. Actually, the funny part about it is, okay, so the jokes that you do, a lot of guys do the same jokes that you do, and like the comparisons are just like completely different, because if you do a joke that a guy does, like the guy's probably gonna get more laughs because he's a guy, rather than you do it because you a girl. Like, how do you like counteract those, or do you even think about like those type of things, like when it comes to like joke writing or just saying stuff on stage,
No,
or just like basically you're being confident? Because I mean there's been times like I've written a joke and I was like, it'd probably be better if a woman said this, and like I just never used the joke. But
yeah.
in a way, like I just wonder how you tell a joke, and like like you probably sit there and be like, man, if a guy told this joke, it'd probably be the highlight of the night. Like he'd be killer. He'd be a headliner right now doing 30 minutes with this joke, and it's just as funny when I say it. So
I think for me, like, I don't really consider how it might be coming from a dude. And the reason I say this is because I've never actually sat down and written a joke like from beginning to scratch. Like some shit always happens, and
mm,
the first thing that comes to my mind is, okay, I can tell this to my personal inner circle and make them laugh. but can I tell the same joke to a room full of strangers that don't know me from another fucking Asian comic and make them laugh? So that's usually my process. It's like I don't think about like, is this gonna sound inappropriate coming from me, coming from a guy? Not so much. I feel like stuff happens to me, and I think if you have children, if you work multiple jobs on like to that extent, it's probably relatable to both men and women, I think. Because I mean, everybody knows what it's like. Well, not everybody, but everybody that's got teenage kids, for example, knows what it's like to be really suspicious about the amount of laundry that your kids are generating after a certain age. And you're just basically trying not to think about the fucking water bill. Like, you know what's up. You just don't want to bring it up. And I feel like parents can relate to that.
So, wait, how old is your son?
12.
He's 12. Okay. Yeah, that's a impressionable age now. That's impressionable age now.
Oh, yeah.
He knows you do stand up, right?
Yeah, I've taken him with me to a few of my gigs. I mean, like I usually like, hey, put your headphones on when it's my set. But
I don't want you to see. I don't want you to see mommy in this light. That's funny. Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, he's starting to be a little character himself. Like, cause usually boys, when we're 12, like that's when personality starts to show up, and we start to, like, explore little things that we do, and think we can come up with our own jokes. So, does he think he's funnier than you right now?
Always. Because he thinks he's so hilarious, and like there's certain things that he says to me. I know it's not even really the question. It's just him trying out material on me, which, when other civilians do that, it's already annoying. But when it's your kid, I'm just like, you know what? We should work on that one first. Like, first of all, people know who you are because you're my son. And if I was out here raising somebody that's not fucking funny, you're just going to have to live with your dad. Like, I can't deal with it. So, like he tries, he tests like little things here and there, but ultimately I don't think he wants to actually become a comedian.
Huh. Really?
Yeah. I don't think
he has such a legacy. He has such a legacy.
He's just not impressed. He's just like, you going out again? I was just like, yeah, I'll be back at like 9:30. He was just like, honestly, I don't care. Does grandma want to order pizza? I'm like, all right.
Yeah, he's also at that age where you're not cool anymore. He doesn't even want you around.
He doesn't care. He doesn't care like who I am, what I've accomplished, like professionally. No.
He said, I don't care. You're well known. I don't care. Every time we go out, like people see you and say hi to you and stuff. Like they want a picture. I don't care. Like as long as I have my tablet and my cell phone, I don't need you. Like,
that's what it's like. Like there was a point where like I was getting recognized at places like Trader Joe's and like just people that have seen me at like like local shows, and Jacob would just stand by, just hella like not impressed, like.
You'd be like, "Can we leave, please?"
Yeah.
Like, man,
he does not.
I see you. Yeah, and then on top of that, he's the first person to see you when you wake up in the morning. So yeah, he's not impressed. He's not impressed at all. Like,
no, he's just like, "Are you still here?" I'm like, "In the house that I pay for, bitch." Yes.
Yeah. No. Actually, I'm not. Cause like, I'm not impressive to my stepson. He's not impressed at all. He's actually. He thinks I'm not funny at all. He goes around the house like, and I think for some reason, if I had $1 for every time he just says Tyson farted. Like, and he thinks that's the only thing. He thinks that's the only thing that's funny. Tyson farted. Like, Tyson farted. Like, I'll try and tell him some jokes, tell him some corny dad jokes, and he'll be like, I ain't impressed. And you're interrupting my tablet time. So, he wants a cell phone right now, too. So, what made you get your son a cell phone?
First of all, I never got him a cell phone. Like, his dad and stepmom pay for it. I'm just like...
Oh yeah, my bad. He get 2 Christmases. He got 2 Christmases.
I was like, fuck it. That's one less thing I have to pay for.
So, you can't even take the cell phone. You can't even take it as a punishment or nothing. You'd be like, I call my dad.
I can actually. Like we've because Because I'm always like, I always talk to Jacob's dad and stepmom. They live just a couple of cities away from me. So like sometimes, before COVID, more often actually, but like, we hang out and we talk about things. And so when Jacob first got a phone, they were just like, if he goes within his rights or his data or whatever, just, feel free to like talk to him about it. I was just like, oh, I've been taking away his phone. Like, don't worry about me. Like I was just
have
like,
you have you taken his phone just to see what's in his phone?
oh, I've gone through his shit. Absolutely. Like
Oh,
there was a point where his grades were sort of like slipping, which is, understandable for kids that, they're doing Zoom learning for the first time. So we've got to, we're trying to be a little bit more patient with them. But yeah, one time, like I had him redo a bunch of shit. And while he was doing it, I went through his phone just to see the shit that he was talking about. And, it's crazy. Jacob's a fairly respectful kid. Like he's never said anything inappropriate in front of me, but some of his group texts, I did.
to see what he looks at online, not on
Yeah.
Texas.
Well,
Come on
the
now.
the only thing I'm making sure of when I see his shit online is, okay, I'm making sure that there's nothing related to like drugs or suicide or, the shit like
Yeah.
we're concerned about our children, right? Or,
Mm-hmm.
or like, and I also the reason I go through his group text and also all that shit is because I want to make sure that, let's say he's talking to people on Call of Duty or whatever, that I mean, it's one thing if it's like a bunch of kids that go to his middle school or whatever, they're all the same age, they want to get together for like airsoft or some bullshit like that, right? But what I'm worried about is, people my age fucking play this shit, and I just want to make sure that whoever Jake is calling bro is not like some 56-year-old like dude with saggy balls and a candy van,
Hey, sometimes they make those are the best teammates. Sometimes, like 56-year-old Carl, he ain't got nothing to do during the day but practice.
No,
Like we
we don't
need
need.
him on. I need him on the squad. I'm just saying. That's all I
You
say.
can have him on your
Like,
squad. He can't be doing this with no fucking 12-year-olds. I'll be like, it's like that dude that has no life in the World of Warcraft episode of
yeah,
like what's it called, South Park, right? It's
yeah.
always like some big ass dude with his fucking belly and like two like empty Rockstar containers and a bunch of and like a plate that hasn't been washed, but that this fool had like hot pockets on it. Like I just want to make sure it's not those people. If he's going to bond over some fucking games, ideally it's going to be with people his own age. That's why I always go through his shit. Like I've
Once
never
again,
the phone of a
once
dude.
again though, once again, those are the best teammates to have. They
Oh,
have
yeah,
nothing to do, like with guys in Call of Duty, and like it starts at a very young age of like 12 or 10, 11, 12. Like you need the best squad possible because if you suck, you're just gonna get shit talked about you, and then kids are unkind. They're gonna say all kinds of things and stuff. They're gonna say all kinds of hurtful things to Jake, and he gonna come to you crying one day, and it's gonna be because you wouldn't let 56-year-old Carl be his teammate with old balls and hot pockets and plates all on the ground and stuff. You wouldn't let him be his teammate, so now Jacob gotta get shit talked by another 13-year-old, and he's be like, I seen your mom's comedy, it's like watching porn. Like now you gotta worry about that and everything. Now Jacob's gotta have a ruined life, all because you wouldn't let a 56-year-old man with old balls be his best teammate.
Did I ever tell you that I wrote a thesis in college about To Catch a Predator?
No, but that's really a weird thesis to write, and also a very interesting way to find out that you're not a predator.
I'm just very fascinated with it. And also, I remember one time I was texting Jacob. I was just, like when he said he was like playing games online, I said, don't play with somebody that you don't know because they're probably a predator. And Jacob was just like, well, if it's online, then doesn't the other person also think I'm a predator? I'm like,
Touche. Touche.
right? I just
See?
I'm not
See?
prepared for this line of questioning.
See, think about it.
Bullshit, dude.
He said that's why Jacob need a 56-year-old man to be his teammate, just because the 56-year-old man thinks he's probably playing with another 56-year-old man with old balls and shit.
So gross.
Makes the best team and stuff. But being a woman in comedy can be great sometimes because it's a lot of great female comics in their prime right now, and it's actually like one of the best times for a woman in comedy. as far as it's like opening doors for everything from movies to having them executive produce their own specials and everything across the board. But there's also the stigma with women in comedy is still the same by a lot of guys. Like a lot of guys just see like they just don't see female comics funny, or when it comes to like producing shows, like they only have one female comic on the bill, and like it varies with race and everything. So tell me what are your thoughts right now on the current stage of females in comedy, and basically what you have to go through basically daily, and what you feel like you want to rant about as far as like comedy wise. Like what would you even change?
Like about the current state of comedy?
No, just like women in comedy. Just like right now, like because okay, you're a female comic in the Bay Area, so I know like there's a lot of female comics in the Bay Area and stuff. So do you guys like have to battle for spots, or is it more like favoritism, or is it just like whoever's sleeping with the producer right now? What in your eyes, what do you think female comedy out there is like, or just for you?
I guess here's the thing. I don't. This is gonna sound pretty terrible. I don't really pay attention to a lot of other like a lot of other comics. The majority of the people that, the majority of like my personal friendships and my personal life, it's completely separate from comedy. Like there's only maybe a handful of people that I've met in the comedy scene. Not because I don't like people. Like I genuinely enjoy like comic hangouts and things like that, and having a great night at work when I see the lineup and it's like people that whose company I enjoy, like professionally and as humans. Those are always a good time. But for me, I guess I don't really pay too much attention because I'm just sort of, this is going to sound selfish, I'm sort of just focused on doing stuff for myself. Like I just, I don't want to think about like whether other women are getting booked more than me, or the ratio of female to male comics that I think should be. Because for me personally, I don't want to be booked on a show just because I'm a woman. I feel like booking a show and saying, oh, there has to be X amount of women for X amount of whatever. I get it for women that find themselves having difficulty getting booked. I understand why that kind of that mindset might sort of be appealing. But for me, it just feels sort of like patronizing. It's just like, well, again, am I being booked because I'm funny or because I'm a fucking woman? Like, I just, at some point I reach a point where I realize I don't care. I'm just like, okay, if I'm here because I feel some sort of diversity quota, then so be it. But I'm just maybe going to be so funny that they look at me as not just a woman, but somebody that's reliable across the board professionally. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of great, that being said, there's a lot of like really great female comics in the Bay Area. There's several that for sure I look up to, because when I first came back to comedy, I looked at them and I was immediately like in awe of them. And so now I can consider those people to actually be personal friends. And when I get to work with them, it's a really great night, because there's a part of me on the inside that's still fucking like fangirling over these people. And the thing is, I feel like really like the really hardworking, good female comics, they're never really the ones that are complaining about not getting booked. Like I don't hear, there's some local names here, and when I think of people that make the most noise about not being able to go get booked, it's never them.
Interesting. So, I mean, when you're at shows and other female comics are there, like, do you like just go up to them and just like talk, or you just like basically keep to yourself? Just
if I know them, like usually like and I'm fortunate in the sense that I tend to work with a lot of the same people. If I know them, I'll talk to them. Absolutely. Like, if they're not the kinds of people that, because I know that there are some people like me, for example, like right before I do my set, I'm always incredibly like nervous. So you're not going to have me talking with somebody and then 5 seconds later, just, oh, I'll be right back, I got to do the set. Like I got to take a little time for myself. And there's other comics that are like that too. So I respect that when I see them. But, for the most part, like when I actually see female comics at shows, that, that I know, that I've spoken with, that I've interacted with before, it's generally easier to start a conversation that way.
Okay, so one of the things that I admire like the most about you is basically your drive, which is kind of because I kind of wonder when you sleep because you have a corporate job, you do stand up comedy at night, also you're a parent, and like being a parent and having a corporate job alone can be a 24-hour a day job, but you also but you also do stand up comedy and you don't just do it just like in the Bay Area. You're pretty much like all over. Like 1 minute you're in the Bay Area, next minute you're in San Diego, then after that you're in Phoenix, and then after that you're right back in the Bay Area. And this is like all in a 7-day a week span, and you're still at work, and you're still a parent. So when do you sleep, and then how do you find the drive to just like, I'm gonna just go wherever I want to go and do what I got to do to make this happen?
Well, I've fortunately reached the point where I don't really have to ask a lot of people if, hey, here's a clip. You probably don't know me. Can I do your show? Like, I've reached the point where most local scenes, I think, in California pretty much know who I am. And so they'll ask me to do shows, and, regardless of like where it is, I've driven really far from shows. And given in COVID, I probably won't go as far for stuff like that. But like for the most part, like prior to that, I was all over the place because, you know, I rarely turn down opportunities, and I'm fortunate because, I get to actually pick and choose some stuff. Like I can negotiate payment rates. I can say no to people that just want to pay me in weed. Like, first of all, like, I have a corporate job. I can afford good weed. Okay, go buy. But yeah, it's just I think what really keeps me going is it's just like, well, there's always going to be somebody behind me or somebody that is going to take this opportunity if I don't take it. And I used to ask in certain cases, like, this is awesome, but why me? And then I realized, well, why not me?
Mm.
I'm sure there's other, because I know that there's other comedians in the Bay Area. Some of them are personal friends of mine that are super funny, like just super fucking hilarious. And I'm not going to go so far as to say that it's a matter of me having more drive, but like they have things like, in, like, I guess like boyfriends or husbands, or they want to travel. They also want to write a book. And for me, my one track mind, just to be able to do this, it has to be comedy. Like, it has to be like, that's gonna come first. Like, comedy's gonna come first, always. And I think that's I don't know if that's like a sad way of answering your question, like, how do I like, where do I sleep, or why do I do comedy so much? Because I like it, and it's just, why not me? But
Oh
to answer
no.
about actually when I sleep, I usually end my night by watching Rick and Morty or just some dumb shit. And then I'm usually asleep. I'm usually asleep around like 11 or midnight. Like nothing too, nothing too crazy. Like, I'm not up like on the internet or anything. And then I get up around the same time that Jacob gets up, because sometimes if I'm talking to my team in New York, I got to be up by like 6 o'clock for those phone calls. And then other nights too, like, I'm on phone calls with people from Hong Kong, so I'm on the phone at like 7 to 8 p.m. at night. It really varies, and I just try to make room for at least 7 hours of sleep every day.
Whew, that's a stretch. Okay, so comedy in the Bay Area basically is kind of right now just shut down and due to COVID and stuff. So I know like going to the Bay Area frequently, I know a lot of comics were basically living before COVID. They were basically living off of comedy and living pretty well off of comedy, because basically you can go to any club any day of the week and like feature on a show and make ends meet. But then as soon as COVID happened, like everything stopped, and like it's hard for people to like kind of like find a way to make a living. Like, you are not one of those people. You actually, basically, have a pretty good job to basically where you don't really need comedy and stuff. My thing is, so what were your first thoughts on COVID, and like, what did you think basically, like, because you're financially stable, like, what were your thoughts basically, or I wouldn't say like I don't want to tell your tax bracket like that, but you weren't as angry as everybody else when or worried as everybody else when COVID happened. So like basically like what are your thoughts been the whole process like just going from there?
Okay, so when I first heard about COVID, I was just, I assumed incorrectly that it was going to be like, what that like bird flu or what swine flu, like I thought it was just one of those scares that happens like once a year. And I think I even posted some shit like, well, if you grew up rolling around on the ground of home base and licking pop rocks off of strangers during the rave, during the rave years of between 1996 and 2003, like you're fucking immune. Just book me, But then, I see the news, like everything's like shutting down. It's starting to get like legit serious, and so I realized also once my it got serious to the point where my parents couldn't leave California, like they couldn't go back to the Philippines. I was just like, yo, this shit is like real, real.
Mm,
So, even though I was, financially in a good place, I still had to be really careful because, people were losing their jobs left and right. And,
mm,
I would have had to support like an entire fucking household, which, to some degree, like I was already doing that because Jacob and I have lived by ourselves for the last like for maybe 4 or 5 years or so, you
mm,
know? But like having my entire family there, knowing that like, their mobility is limited. They can't be going out standing in line at grocery stores looking for like toilet paper or some shit if people go crazy again. And, I realized that a lot of that was going to fall on me. So I was like, okay, I got to take care of my job. I got to take care of my corporate job first. I got to take care of myself physically, like wear a mask, not be around fucking crowds, which meant like no outdoor comedy for the most part, unless it was like super regulated. Like I
mm,
really just didn't feel comfortable leaving my house for all that shit. And so once things started to ease up a little, I still had to be really picky about the shows that I took because if anything happened to me, that would have compromised my entire family. Because it's like Jake's not old
mm.
enough to go out and do these things. My dad's a senior citizen. He's pretty like vibrant and active, but even that, like he's still at a high risk given that he's like 69 years old, giggity. And my mom just easier for her to just not leave the house. So, those are the things I had to think about. So, definitely I was worried about like the comedy folks because their lines of work, like working at a coffee shop, working at bars and things like that, all those industries disappeared. So basically anybody that I cared about that had a GoFundMe, I kicked down
Mm,
money, like just no hesitation, just
mm.
take it. Like just, if people needed like financial assistance or if they needed like to recover from surgery, they weren't getting a stimulus check, like shit like that. Like, yeah, I was a GoFundMe fairy for like maybe 3 months.
Yeah, no, I think for me with COVID and everything, I think for a lot of us, we kind of we kind of basically we didn't. It was funny like the first like couple months because it was just like all right, this is only gonna last until like June or
Yeah.
like oh no they gonna let us have Cinco de Mayo like and then like it started getting to like August and then September and stuff and it's like man we ain't did comedy in like 7 months and stuff and to me and I don't really miss it. I mean I miss comedy like actually like doing stand up in the actual club. I think that's what I miss the most because
Yeah.
it was a lot of clubs that like during that time that I've been like persistently trying to get to do a show for months, and then I finally got the dates, and then one by one they just kept dropping. And it was just like, man, like dang it, I really wanted to perform there. Like, oh man, like that was gonna be my first time performing there, or oh man, that was gonna be my first time putting a show on there,
Oh yeah.
and in the Bay Area, especially, to me it hit me like hard in the Bay Area because it's just like I one of the first time I ever did a show in the Bay Area was at Cobb's, and like I hold that like near and dear to my heart. And then I was supposed to do a show at the Punchline in San Francisco not too long ago. I think I want to say it was supposed to be in July, and it got
Yeah.
canceled. And then it was crazy because like with the Punchline in San Francisco, okay, so COVID happens, but before COVID happens, the whole lease thing happens where they almost shut the Punchline down, and you kind of had a part to play in keeping it open in a way. So tell me about that experience, because actually it's kind of like I've already heard the story, but like I know people at home want to hear about it because actually
Oh,
you got to be close to a very big person.
okay. Okay. So I remember this when the Punchline was about to shut down. There was a press conference at City Hall. I forgot what day was. This was during the work week, and I remember because I left my corporate office for like 2.5 hours. I told them I was going to City Hall. They knew that it was like some comedy. It was comedy related because they all had heard the news. So I went there, and a lot of comedians that are from the Bay Area, like a lot of real local favorites, and bigger names were there. And so we were all on the steps of City Hall, and Dave Chappelle was actually there. And so I figured, I'm not going to bother him because everybody else is probably already like hitting him up for pictures or trying to like talk to him or whatever. But at one point he went up to me because we were all standing on the stairs, and he asked me to switch places with him. And I said, you're supposed to be in the center of this, like, really? And he says, oh, they're gonna find me, but you're really short. So he basically asked me to switch places with him so I could be seen. And so there were news reporters and members of the press at the bottom of the stairs that were catching all of this, but without the audio. So they're basically talking, and then they see like me and Dave Chappelle having a conversation and switching places. And so when I got back to my office, I had hella text on my phone asking me from people that had seen the news, asking me what me and Dave Chappelle talked about. They're like, "Hey, did you ask for a set?" I said, "The Punchline's about to get like taken away. Like that's so thirsty. I would never do that."
So, it was like, yeah, it's about to get closed down, but what you and Dave talk about? Like,
right. I'm just like, where are y'all priorities at? And so my dad actually saw the news broadcast, and he texted me, and he was just like, if you're still near Chappelle, please take a selfie. And
then your dad was thirsty.
Yeah, my dad. I was like, Dave's got to be out of here by now. But I looked over, and he was still like 2 people away from me, and he wasn't doing anything. He was like smoking, just chilling. And I said, Dave, I was like, sorry to bother you with this. And he was like, oh, what's up? And I said, my dad, because I had been telling him about my dad before, because my dad wanted to see a show, but it was like sold out. And I was like, my dad asked me to take a selfie with you. I hope it's not too much trouble. He was just like, get in here. And then he took my phone, he took a selfie, and then he took one that he was satisfied with and sent it to my dad. And so,
yeah. he should have probably looked in all your DMs and all your group messages. Like,
yeah, that would have grossed him out, just like it would have grossed out any other reasonable human being in America. And so I remember also, like, after that, like, I had, I mentioned, like, he knew that the shows were sold out and stuff like that. And he was just like, when you're in town again, like, bring your dad by the Punchline or something. And I was like, okay. I was like, that is almost better than you asking me to perform for you. Because, first of all, that would be a lot of pressure. I don't need it. But I think also if my dad gets to meet Dave Chappelle, I don't have to do shit for him for the rest of my life.
You can look at your dad and be like, I own you now.
Yeah, I own you. Like, I don't do shit. I give you a grandson. I introduce you to Dave Chappelle. I'm done. That's it.
Oh yeah. So wait, which one do you think falls in the rankings like first? Like meeting Dave Chappelle and getting a selfie with him for your dad, or having the grandson?
That's honestly a question that we'd have to ask my dad.
I can already tell you, it's meeting Dave Chappelle.
Yeah, my dad's now paying for Jake's braces, so I'm sure.
Oh yeah, it's definitely meeting Chappelle. It's more cost efficient to meet Dave
Chappelle. Yeah, exactly.
He said
weed, so that would be like one less thing that they have to do together.
Yeah, no, I think that's one of the things I love about the Bay Area, because like you guys have so many comedy legends just like stop by, like different shows, and it's not just like they're like big shows at the Fillmore or anything like that. They can just be little shows in a rink-a-dink like coffee shop, and you'll have like people like Dave Chappelle just walk in. It's totally different like in LA, because in LA, like LA areas, when big name comics walk in, it's like almost terrible. I mean, I know you know, because you've toured around LA and stuff like that. Like when big name comics walk into LA comedy clubs, it's the worst if you're not a name. Like, because either you're about to get bumped, or like if you ask them to take a selfie or take a picture, or just even ask them for advice, they act like you're invisible.
Yeah, oh yeah.
and then they chew up your time, and and then they critique. They'll like boo you, like that. Like I know I've seen plenty of comics that like weren't having good sets, maybe because they're still new in the comedy and stuff like that. It'd be a big name comic in the back, just like, man, you're terrible. You should get a new profession. I'm not gonna say who it was, but it's crazy hanging with Mr. Cooper. You garbage. You garbage. She's like, man, like they gonna let this dude like keep performing and stuff, and it was funny, but then there's other big names I've seen like that, and I was just like, man, like that, like the energy just in LA is terrible. The energy in the Bay Area though, like they'll come up to you, they'll like just talk to you about whatever.
Yeah.
Like how you said, like with you and Dave, like just basically like talking about switching spots, but everybody probably thought like y'all was talking about everything else and stuff. Or he probably would have gave you his phone number and told you to text him sometime. And it's just the energy in the Bay Area is just so much different. It's so like more laid back, and like people don't take. I mean, they take comedy seriously, but then they don't take it too serious. Like everybody wants to be everybody's like friend for the most part. In the Bay Area, but it's just nothing like it. And I just want to know, like, now that with COVID, like basically like putting this like a halt to everything, like do you guys like still like communicate with each other? Do you still like, you know, like talk, like hang out, or try and get together, or try and like do like private shows anywhere? Or...
So for me, the people that I was working with prior to COVID have been still consistently booking me for stuff, whether it's on Zoom or, you know, the occasional like socially distanced live show. And I think that's why I've managed to continue to work steadily through COVID. And that's just because like people that would have already normally booked me for other stuff find that, hey, she's still willing. So, you know, they'll hit me up for shows. And it's weird because sometimes I'll have like 5 shows scheduled for a month, and then so many I get like last minute, like what happened to me last month and what's happening to me now. I think I had like 4 shows left for like the month of November, and then I booked like 3 different ones just today. It's just, you know, I think like I think for the most part people keep in touch with who they want to keep in touch with. And so like over me, I haven't really gotten together with a lot of other comedian friends. It's really rare. But when it does happen, we're always like super happy to see each other. Like I think the first couple of shows that I did when I left the house were in Santa Cruz, which is already one of my favorite places to perform, and then Fremont, and they were both like movie like drive-through style, like drive-in style sort of shows, which you know, it's not really the same as doing an indoor show, but you know, it's still pretty fun. And you know, when you get people on the lineup that are people that you would normally want to see anyway, like that's always fun. Like that's our time to see each other. Although I will say that I have been really hardcore bonding with like LA based female comics that, you know, like I've either worked with them in some other capacity, or we've met, like, you know, we've done Zoom shows together and we just like hit it off. And so like, dude, there's like 3 girls that I'm going to have dinner with, you know, when this whole shit like dies down a little bit and there's like more normalcy to the world. And I'm excited about that. I mean, not that I don't bond with female comics up here, but it's nice. It's like having an online pen pal that you respect professionally. And it's like super cool. Like I'm so excited. Like I think I have standing plans with one of them to get like Korean barbecue in LA, and then another one to go hang out in Long Beach. It's been really nice.
Oh, so you do Zoom shows?
Yeah.
Like,
no, it's not my first choice. Oh. Especially because, you know, I have a tech job, so like if I do like my normal work day and then I do a fucking Zoom show, or I do like a podcast or some bullshit, that means some days I can be on a computer for like 14 hours, which it's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot of brain drain. But that being said, I feel like opening up, or keeping an open mind and doing Zoom shows, it's allowed me to network with people for whom working together might require a bit more logistics. So I've been able to do I've been able to do comedy festivals. I did my favorite one. I keep stuttering. I'm sorry. My favorite one that I've done. My favorite show has been one of them has been the Crazy Woke Asians for Black Lives. That was a great show. So, and then
how many comics were on that?
There were a lot, because they split it up into like 2 different shows. And so the people on my lineup, it was me, I think, I want to say Godfrey. Pumpkin Johnson closed out. She's the one I remember the most. She closed out. And then there were a couple of other people that are like Crazy Woke Asians regulars. And so before COVID, I knew that they had a show in LA. They had like multiple shows. I had never worked on a show before. And then over COVID, somebody actually reached out to me. So now that they've had me on a few of their actual shows, maybe when the world gets back to normal, I can actually hit somebody up for a show.
How did you adjust like doing your set on Zoom? Because I think I did like one Zoom show, and like I just hated the whole experience, and it was probably because it was early into like comics doing Zoom shows, because like it seemed like every comic wanted to do a Zoom show, and it was just like you were doing it in a room full of comics, or you were basically like the audience was there, but you couldn't get their natural reaction. You just like kind of like, probably because their Wi-Fi was shitty, and like it would come at a delay, so you wouldn't know if a thing was funny until like 15 minutes later, and everything. So like, after you doing it a few times, how did you get adjusted?
I looked at it like this. I was just like, at its very best, a Zoom show is basically like a really fun like FaceTime call with like several of your homies and maybe some strangers that basically they're there to like witness you guys have like a comedian meetup. And then at its very worst, it's just a bunch of unfunny people just dialing it in and waiting for the show to be over. So, there's a balance. There's a balance. So, but that being said, I mean, I adjusted because I know what it's like to communicate with people over a laptop. As somebody that's worked in, again, my line of work, we have a lot of video conferences and video chats. And so, there are some things that I know get lost in translation and things that don't. And, I took that same energy to when I started doing Zoom shows, especially ones that had pretty traditional format, which is basically, you have a regular host, each of you does like 8 minutes or whatever, and then headliner, collect tips, and that's it. The shows that have had sort of unique formats, like more like game shows, those have been really fun to do, because it's not, you're not really so much doing your set as you are just sort of doing like quick on the fly games that make you think. Like some stuff that you have to do a punchline based on a prompt, or they give you a prompt and you have to formulate a joke like on the spot. And that's been really challenging and fun to do, more so than just doing like a regular typical format comedy show, because again, it's not, you can't really be like, any parents in the house, make some fucking noise. And then you look at the computer to see if anyone's fucking paying attention. It's not the same. Like it's not the same, and I'm gonna stop lying to myself and thinking that it's the same, because it's not.
That's funny. Like, are there any parents in the house? Yeah, because we're monitoring this, because we're trying to figure out who's a predator in here.
That part.
Yeah. So yeah, no, but let me just ask you a few more things before I let you go. Basically, what do you? I mean, the election happened. Black Lives Matter. The pandemic happened. All this happened, and for the first time ever, like, comedy in the Bay Area just was non-existent. Do you think once comedy starts back up, you think everybody's just gonna like all the comics are just gonna rush out and just talk about everything that they just missed on, or do you think like people are gonna be so over talking about it that we're gonna move on and just like go back to standard material as usual?
So I think okay, this is what I think. I think um, really good comics that have something to bring to the table about COVID that's not going to be the same as everyone's standard. Man, I can't do COVID, or I can't go out due to COVID. Man, I tried to date, and dating's a disaster because touching them is like anal. It's just I feel like if people have really something to contribute to the ongoing conversation about COVID, they'll do it, and it'll be like really really good. I think there's going to be a lot of hack comedy where every other person goes to an open mic and thinks that they have a really unique story. Like, look, we all know that you've quit your that you don't have a job and you've been drinking like crazy. Like you've got cirrhosis. We get it. It's not a particularly unique, you know, point of view. But I think a lot of people will need to actually see how they measure up against other open micers to determine, hey, look, my point of view is not particularly unique. And maybe it'll inspire them to either think hard or nurture some other part of their creative psyche, aside from the one that makes them feel compelled to tell the world the same thing that a million bazillion other aspiring comics think that they've been holding on to during this time.
Okay, and then also, do you think, well, because I guess there are some rumors that comedy clubs are basically just going to be closed, or certain comedy clubs, especially ones in California, are going to be closed for maybe another year or so. Do you think comedy clubs can actually last not being open that long?
I don't know. I really don't know because, I would think that there would be people that need to get paid. Like, what's the point in, paying the overhead for their grocery for like things like liquor or food items if they're not expecting or anticipating a return for the next 6 months? Like, I don't know if they have the capacity to stay open. I mean, I know that people are doing like things like GoFundMe's, but I would imagine that it's more for the staff that's missing out on the jobs as opposed to the actual status of the building. I really
Well,
don't know.
buildings still need to be paid. So, like,
Yeah, yeah,
and
exactly.
if we know
Like,
anything about paying rent or paying house payments or anything like that, we know that during COVID they did not care. They
no,
still want their money.
they're just like, give it to me. Like,
Yeah,
give it to me. Like,
it
it was
sounds it
hard. It's
sounds
hard
like
to
a
watch.
personal problem. So, but yeah, no. So, all right, I'm gonna have some comedy preferences that I want to see what you're interested in. Okay, what I'm gonna do is say either or, and basically you just tell me which one you prefer more. These are just your personal opinions and stuff, so we're just gonna go with that. It doesn't matter if you feel like the world thinks this way about it, but you feel this way. So I'm just gonna, so I'm just gonna go with, okay, so Margaret Cho or Ali Wong.
Margaret Cho.
Okay. All women comedy show or all men comedy show?
Ah, shit. All women comedy show. If the women are funny.
Okay. Cobb's Comedy Club or the Comedy Store?
Cobb's.
Okay. Okay. And sex with a comedian or sex with a female comedian?
I mean, nobody can top me. So, sex with a comedian, probably.
Interesting. Okay. Well, okay. Okay. I guess.
That's horrible to
Drive-in.
say. That's
Yeah, that
no.
was.
I am the best female comedian at sex. No, that's
Yeah.
horrible. That's horrible.
Yeah. Okay. Drive-in comedy or dark alley comedy club or comedy shows.
Oh, shit. Oh. I feel like drive-in comedy's safer.
Oh, which one would you prefer to perform in though?
Oh shit. Allie.
she's like, you just think about it. It's just something about an alley that's funny. Like, okay, headlining a show with Dave Chappelle or headlining a show with your favorite comedian?
I'd rather headline a show with my favorite comedian.
Okay. And okay, if you could put together a comedy show at any comedy club or theater in the world, and you had to pick 3 people to feature, open, and then also be another feature on your show, you would be the headliner. Who would you pick?
Oh,
And where would it be?
okay. That's hard because I am so much more comfortable as a feature.
Mm.
But for the sake of your premise, I would like to do my show with Chelsea Beers, with Erie Diamond, and do we need a token guy? Do we need to have a guy? So you see, like, was it 3 other comics?
Yeah.
Okay. Chelsea Beers, Erie Diamond, and Valerie Vernelli. Those are my 3 favorites.
Okay, where would it be at?
We would do it at San Jose Improv. That'd be fun.
What? I've never performed at San Jose Improv. I was supposed to. The show got canceled.
I know. I was there.
Yeah, yeah. You're supposed to be there and stuff like that. So, yeah, it broke my heart. But hopefully the Improv will stay open and like they'll let us come back in 2021 and stuff. All right. Is there anything comedy wise you're working on right now, or anything you want to basically throw a plug at, or do you want to give us Jake's Instagram or a game tag? That way we can talk shit to him while
So I mean, I have a weekend of shows in San Francisco. Most of my any place that you guys can find me where I always update my comedy stuff is my Instagram. So it's just at Ivy Cordova, my entire name that you see like right down there. Am I pointing this? Right down there.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a delay on my end. But yeah, that's where I keep all my that's my comedy schedules and all that kind of stuff. I think for the next year or so, there's other things that I'm gonna be working on like outside of comedy. But like ultimately I'm really excited for us to get through this most recent shutdown in one piece and hopefully go back to slowly performing out in the world like normal people again.
Yeah, because I kind of think we got to get through COVID first, and then we got to make sure Trump completely leaves the White House. I don't know. They're saying odds makers are saying like Trump's gonna be there still before COVID leaves. So it's weird and stuff. But I want to thank Ivy Cordova for being our guest tonight. She was truly fun, truly amazing. And remember to follow her on social media at Ivy Cordova. And this is Tyson Paul. Thank you guys for watching another episode of We on the Laughs with Tyson Paul. And I just want to say, remember to always laugh at life because it's actually pretty funny. All right, see you guys next week.